My paranormal experiences started when I was very, very young. I've never known a time that they were not happening to me. It's just part of my normal life. When I was extremely young, and I want to say at this point, I was probably 3 or 4 years old, was my first ET abduction. I remember it very clearly. The memory has never faded. It's never changed. It's never going to change. I was not hurt at that time. I was brought up on a ship. There were 2 rooms to it. Everything in the ship was white. I remember standing in an alcove of it, looking into a corner. And the corner looked really dark, but there was actually a smaller type ET that was in there. And it told me that that was not my first time there, that I had been watched my whole life, and I was very young. And it did reach its arm out to try to touch me. I remember seeing like this, it was gray, but it was a weird gray color, and very, very long, spindly fingers, but the knuckles seemed pronounced on each of the joints. And I got the impression it was a female. She kept trying to tell me that she was my mother, which I knew that wasn't right. And, I was 3, 4 years old. I want to say closer to 4. I remember I wasn't afraid. And then looking back in my life, I'm like, why wasn't I afraid? I've never understood that. But I remember her saying that she had seen me before. And I remember telling her that I needed to go home. I wasn't supposed to be there, and that she would be in a huge amount of trouble when my mom woke up, found out I was not in my bed, and that my mom would deal with her because my mom was going to be mad that I wasn't at home. And she just kind of looked at me and extended this arm out. I remember turning around, and across the room, and again, the whole room was white, but across the room was another small gray ET, and it had what was like a white table without legs, but the flap folded and jutted out from the wall, but there was no legs on it. And it looked like what we would consider nowadays a laptop there. And then on the wall next to it was this huge assortment of large buttons. And the buttons would be approximately the size of the palm of your hand. And they were multicolored. And it seemed like it would reach up, and it was hitting a pattern of these colored buttons. And then after it would do the pattern, this thing that looked like a laptop, it would light up, and it would go over to it. And then it would go back to the buttons and punch all the buttons, and then the laptop would light up and it would go back to that. And it never looked at me. It never came near me. It was focused on whatever it was doing with these buttons and this laptop type device. And then on the other side, or not the other side, but like right would have been in front of me, because like I was facing the one in the alcove, and then next to the alcove was this arch-shaped door. And there was no door, and it was a walkway, more or less. But I remember very clearly that from the bottom of the floor up all around the arc and down, it was patterns of shapes and symbols that went all the way around it. What I found was extraordinary, and it didn't seem like that at the time because I was a small child. But as I went through life and I kept remembering it, and I wasn't frightened when I would have the memories. I wasn't scared. They never hurt me. But I was born in 1964. So this was roughly late 67, 68. Back then, we didn't have CAT scan machines that I'm aware of. And when I looked through this arch doorway, there was a machine there. And it was white. It had a table jutting out from the middle of it. And it very closely resembled our modern CAT scan machines. But again, everything was white. And there was an adult man laying motionless on this table. And next to the table were two tall grays. They were very tall, very thin built, but they were standing next to this machine and this man. And the man, I never saw him move at all. I don't know what they were doing. He was unresponsive. He was just laying there. And then past that, on the end wall, was more of these large buttons. And each button was different colors. And there was another shorter gray there punching all of the buttons. None of them said anything to me other than the one that I thought was a female. And she just stood in front of me and stared at me. And of course, at that time, I was little. So, she wasn't honestly much bigger than me. I mean, I didn't feel like she was towering above me. But I kept telling her, I said, you don't want to do this because if you don't get me back home, my mom's going to be mad, and you don't want to mess with my mom when she's mad, because if I'm not in bed, she's going to be mad. And I almost felt like, not that she laughed at me, but she found it funny. And I've mind spoke with things since probably before I could really verbally talk well. And I felt like that's how I heard her, was in my mind. I never really felt like I verbally heard words. I never saw a mouth move on any of them. But yet I knew that what I was hearing was coming from her. And the next thing I knew, I was home and I was wide awake and I was in my bed. And I just kind of looked around like I was expecting to see something that I never saw. And I went to sleep. So the next day I told my mom, and my mom just thought, I'd had a dream. I mean, what is she going to say? She never said, you're lying, you're making it up, because I didn't have that kind of parents. My parents were never like that with me. I've always had paranormal experiences. My entire life has been nothing but paranormal experiences. And never once have my parents ever said, I don't believe you, you're making it up. Nothing, because they know me. My mom did say to me one time, she said, I may not understand what you see or go through or experience, but I know one thing, you don't lie. So she said, if you tell me these things are happening, I believe you. So I was very blessed when it came to my parents. As I got older, I noticed no matter where I lived, no matter what I did, UFOs followed me around. Like it didn't matter where I was at. It wasn't 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but I would see them. I would see what would look like ETs looking in windows. I would find strange footprints. Various things would happen. I would walk in a room. I'd see things slide across the table. I would see orbs dancing around the room, or, it was always something. But again, I never knew that this wasn't what everybody else dealt with, because there was never a time that it wasn't there. So for me, I think I should have been frightened more than I was, but I think I wasn't because I didn't know differently. Now, there have been times that I have been frightened. I mean, I am human, but ETs will come at you in many ways. It can come to you while you're awake, but they also can come at you in dream state. Dream state, people think once you're asleep, everything is a dream. And that's really incorrect. Dream state, everybody has dreams. That's perfectly normal. But there are also dreams that are actually quite real. Dream state is just another plane that you go to when you're asleep. You can get hurt in it. You can get killed in it. When you're actually not having a dream. And it's very real. I woke up one time with a broken arm that I remembered what had happened during dream state. I was involved in a big fight. There was a battle going on. And my arm was broken. And I woke up because of the pain, ended up having to go to emergency. And my arm was broken. Which, of course, I told them I fell down the stairs, because if I would have told them what really happened, they would have wanted to lock me up. And I woken up with busted lips, bruises. I've woken up with strange marks on me, triangles for some reason. I don't know what the ETs do with these triangles. I've woken up with marks of triangles on me. My children have, my husband has. None of us have ever had any memory of why the triangles were there. I've been attacked in dream state. And one of the ways that I've learned in my lifetime to tell whether or not is this a dream, is this an ET, there are some subtle ways. I was having these terrifying dreams of being in this place. And every now and then, somebody that I knew in my lifetime would be in this dream. And this could be a teacher I had in third grade, somebody I hadn't seen in many years, never even thought of, and then they would show up in my dream. And it was always something bad was being done to me in these dreams. And then I'd wake up the next morning with strange marks on my body. And I thought, this is getting to be ridiculous. You're in that dream state situation and you think that, this is just a bad dream. You can subconsciously actually maneuver yourself and do things in dream state, even though you think you can't. Like, you have some control in that state. If it's not a regular dream and it's actually something that is attacking you, you have control of yourself. Be aware. I know that sounds really hard to comprehend, but it can be done. Be aware of what is happening around you. Watch things moving around. Are they walking more stiff than they should be? Is there a reason that they're not talking? Or when they talk, it's either muffled, super high pitched, or they won't look at you when they do it. And it's a very quick one word. It's not a full sentence because they cannot imitate the voices. And I learned that when I realized that that was the case, that they can be stopped in dream state. I was taught many, many years ago how to do energy work. Anybody can do it. If I can do it, a trained ape can do it. But we all have energy inside of us, and there is a way to move energy and manipulate the energy that's within your body to stop these things. And it's basically the same thing as if you were to go up and grab a hot wire fence with your hand, you're going to get zapped. And that's what it can do. And it can actually protect you. I work with multiple people all over the globe. And 99.9% of these people that I work with, I teach how to do this because it protects them and it has saved many, many lives. So I learned how to do that in dream state. And it's been very helpful. Since I started doing that, the attacks in dream state have dropped considerably. It doesn't mean I don't still get it, but I also don't have the fear that I had then. The first attack that was really bad, I'd been attacked before, but there was one in particular that was extremely bad. I was terrified to the point that when I woke up that morning, it was like 6:30, 7 o'clock. And the ETs have a habit of making you go to sleep. So you are completely knocked out where you think that you're just tired. And it's not that you're just tired. It's like being put in a trance. And they literally knock you out. Like, you can't wake up from it. When they did this particular time to me, they knocked me out at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was basically out until 7 o'clock. And it was unbelievable. I was terrified beyond belief. I called a friend of mine. I literally was hiding under my blankets. And I called a friend of mine because she's also had dealings. Her late husband had dealings with the ETs. And I called her and she was trying to talk to me and calm me down. And after I finally got composed and I got up and started my day, I thought, I can't ever let it go to this point again. Like, I was immobilized because of my fear. And at that point, just decided that, are there going to be times I get afraid like this? Of course there is. Anybody would, but I wasn't going to let it take control of me again. And by that time, I was also had learned the energy work, and I just continued with it, and I had to figure it out on my own. And that's one of the reasons I help other people, because it's rough figuring it out on your own. And so that's why I help people. So, I fast forward, and I after that time when they thought they could come and get at me again, they found out it wasn't as easy. You can move energy in dream state. You can move it when you're awake. You can move it, when you're asleep. And so it lightened that up considerably. I have never had another attack that has paralyzed me with fear. I had one attack that I was actually awake when they attacked. And I was in my bedroom. I was watching TV. My husband was asleep in the bed next to me. And I'm just watching my TV, no problem. I heard a noise. I looked to my right, and there was a tall, greenish gray, humanoid type figure standing next to my bed. I looked to the foot of the bed, and there were three, the same colorations. It had the bulbous head kind, but not quite like the Zeta Grays that had attacked me when I was little. And their coloration was different. And there was three of them standing at the end of the bed. So I went to go wake up my husband, and I found out I was paralyzed. I could not move. I started to turn my head, and I could only turn it slightly. And the one that was next to me on the right, all of a sudden there was like this table there. And again, I was completely 100% awake when this happened. It wasn't in dream state. I was awake. And it had this table, and it put this thing on my head. And as corny as it sounds, it felt like an upside down colander as far as the shape of it. But it had tentacles, these rubbery, I will never forget this till the day I die, because I remember what it felt like. They were probably, if you were to take your thumb and your first finger and put it together, that's about how big around each tentacle was. It was cold. It was slimy. This thing was alive. Like, it moved. It didn't just hang there. It was each tentacle, and there was multiples. It just kept moving around my face. And it was all over my face, all over my hair. I could not catch my breath. It was literally taking my breath away. But it was on very tightly on my head. And I remember I had turned my head to try to get away from it. And I saw the ones at the end of the bed, and then I couldn't turn my head anymore. My head was as paralyzed as the rest of my body. I know how to throw energy. I have zapped things when necessary. I normally do that with my hands, but now my hands are paralyzed. I can't move. I can't do anything, and I can't breathe correctly because of these tentacles all over my face. And, it was slimy. It was all over my cheeks and my face, and it was just horrid. And I started to panic. And as I started to panic, I heard something say to me, "You can do this. Just don't think about it." And I thought, you know what? You're right. I protect people all the time. I've protected myself. Like, my panicking was what was going to be the end of me, because I would not do what I knew how to do in a panic. So what I did was just try to pretend that none of it was going on, and focused on moving the energy outside of my body, which is not hard to do. Anybody can do it. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to blast it out outside of your body, out of every pore in your body. You don't have to have your hands to do it. That's just the easiest way that I personally do it. And so instead of focusing on what was being done to me, I focused on very quickly and sharply just sending it out of every part of my body. When I did that, it was like it broke whatever hold they had, because I could move. And they were out of there so fast, everything was just gone. I mean, it was gone. Like, I saw the three of them, and it was almost like they went right through the wall. They were gone. I turned around to the one that was on the side of the bed. That thing was gone. It was awful. I had gunk in my hair. The thing was no longer on my head, but I had slimy stuff in my hair. And, people later said, well, did you get a sample of it? At that particular time, that was the last thing I was thinking of. I could not wait to get in a shower and just wash everything off me because it was so disgusting. And they have not to this day, that particular group with that particular, I don't want, if it's an instrument or whatever you want to call it, has not come back. At another time, I was, again, laying in bed watching TV, and it had to be some kind of ET. It was not one I had seen before. It was very bizarre in its shape. It was very muscular. It was not like these little spindly ones that you normally see. And its face was very bizarre. It had more features to it than what a traditional ET would be. And it showed up in my room. It was over like halfway between the window and the door. And I felt such bad energy from it because I read energy. And it felt horrifying to me. And I remember throwing energy at it and it was gone. But a lot of these things, they can project emotions onto you. They can project thoughts onto you in your mind, all kinds of things. And they can astral project into your room so that you think they're real and they're actually not. It's almost like a decoy. They don't actually have to be there. Whether or not that's what that thing was, I have no idea. But it did project the fear onto me. And I thought, I am not doing this again. I'm just not. And I was able to run it off. And so I was unscathed. It never did anything to me other than show up and make sure that I was fearful of it. I had another time where I was at home. My husband and I were dating at the time. He lived in Indiana. I lived in Michigan. And he was sitting on the couch, and he mind speaks. He's tremendous at it. There's him and one other person that I think are two of the best I've ever worked with. And I've mind spoke since I was very, very small. He heard something talking, and I don't think they realized that he could hear them. And they said, just open his mouth, put it in his mouth, and as soon as he goes to kiss her, it will go to her lungs and she'll finally be dead. And I was doing a lot of active work, energy work at the time. And, a lot of the good things thought it was great, but the bad things were definitely not appreciating the work I was doing. And he came in the kitchen and he said, this is just a bad idea. Like, I think, I heard these things talking. I felt my mouth be opened. I felt something put it on my tongue. I think that we need to really take this seriously. And I was like, oh no, I'm fine. I haven't picked up any bad energy or bad vibes. It's perfectly fine. And he was really freaked out about it. And like an idiot, I walked up and I gave him a kiss. And I said, see, I'm still here. And he said, I know that, but things are after you. And I said, I know, but I choose not to be afraid all the time. I get afraid of things enough. I don't need to enhance that. So it wasn't even an hour later, and I felt like all I wanted to do was sleep. And I thought, what is wrong with me? And he said, you know what? Because I had 3 children that were still living at home. He said, I got the kids. You go rest. You're tired. Go rest. So I did. And that was on Saturday. Sunday, he was due to go back to Indiana. So I slept all through the night. Sunday, I was still tired. And he said, I have a bad feeling. I think I'm just going to go and call work, tell them I'm not coming in Monday and I'm staying here. And I'm like, no, we can't afford for you to miss a day of work. For what? For me to sleep? That's ridiculous. I'm here. The kids are with me. And, they were teenagers. And I'm like, I'm fine. So he went back. He wasn't happy about going back home, but he went back. And I slept through the night again. And he told my daughter, he said, you don't go to school tomorrow. You stay home and you keep an eye on her, which my daughter was thrilled. She got a free pass. I was so tired I didn't care. And I had a mini pig and a collie dog that would alert me to seizures because I had been having seizures. And they were coming in and poking at me and oinking and barking, and then they'd go get my daughter, and it was just this went on all morning. And I was like, I don't know what your problem is. I'm not having a seizure, and I knew this. And finally, something spoke to me and said, listen, something's bad. You're missing all the signs. This is really bad. So I told my daughter, I said, I think I need to go to the hospital. And she said, what's wrong? And I said, I have no idea. I just know I'm tired. I had no fever. I had no illness of any kind. On Friday, I had just had a full physical, chest x-rays, blood workup. And because of other health issues I have, the blood workup they do right then and there, like I know within a matter of hours, everything was fine. I had no health issues. So I said, I think, we should call an ambulance because I don't think it'd be a good idea if I drive because I'm just too tired. My son came in the door and he said, well, Mom, my friend's here. He said, she can take you. You don't have to call an ambulance. And I said, okay, great. So my daughter is with me and I said, call Pat, who's my husband now. We were dating then. I said, tell him to call my friend. And basically myself, my friend and Pat work in the paranormal field together as a team. And I said, tell him to call my friend who lived in Texas. She says, what does he tell her? And I said, he doesn't tell her anything. He just tells her I'm in trouble. She knows who to contact, which paranormal being is the best course of action, and she knows how to get hold of them, and I'll get help. So we got to the hospital. They came out, got me with a wheelchair, took me in back immediately, and the doctor came in and said, that he had a crash team outside my door. He said, your heart's getting ready to crash. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, we're putting you up in intensive care. So they take me to intensive care, and he says, I think he said, at this point, we're trying to save you. I cannot promise you anything. You have sepsis pneumonia. Your lungs are filled. And I said, that's not possible. On Friday, I just had everything checked. No, I had none of this. So he kept trying to have me cough, and I brought up this stuff that looked like tar. And he said, I have no idea what this is. So he said, if you survive, you'll be 6 months in intensive care. You'll be 6 months in the hospital in rehab. I said, okay, fine. I'm laying down, and I've talked to ghosts my whole life. All these spirits are standing around me, and I can't hear them. When I can't hear something talk, it's bad. For me, that's about as bad as it gets because there's never been a second of any day I couldn't hear them. I remember when help came, I heard a humming noise. I felt hands on my legs. And then all of a sudden I felt perfectly fine. And I'm like trying to sit up and I'm taking the oxygen mask off. And the doctor comes in and he can't figure out what's going on. And I said, I feel perfectly fine. And he's looking at me like I'm nuts. I was out of intensive care in 12 hours and I was home in less than 24. Fortunately, I got help. Maybe not from doctors and nurses, but I got help. So, the most I could find out was it was a Draco attack. Shortly thereafter, there were other beings in the paranormal field that were coming down with the same exact thing. And because I do healing work on a lot of them that are good, I get to choose who I heal and who I don't. I've worked on good ETs as well as other beings. And they all got it too. And we never had a name for it. The test came back of what they had me cough up because I didn't have a cough. I had to really work to even get anything out of my lungs. And they sent it to all kinds of labs, and every one of them sent it back and said, we have no clue what this is. This is unidentifiable to us because we can't pick up anything. There's nothing even that shows an infection in what's coming out of her. So this stuff happens. It's real. It happens to multiple people. I'm not the only one. It's not abnormal to look above my house and see UFOs. My son-in-law came to visit, and he was with me for a couple of weeks. And the first day he got here, it was like a paranormal meltdown for him because it's one thing to know that Mom has all these things going around and he knew that I was not one that would make it up. It's another to physically see it. And I had a pair of night vision binoculars, and he had asked if he could see it because he was watching all these paranormal creatures running around my yard and the woods. And he was like, the first 2 weeks, he was just going crazy. He couldn't sleep. All he wanted to do was look on these binoculars. And he came and got me, and he's like, Mom, get out here in the front yard. It was probably It was after dark, but it wasn't late at night. And I said, what? He said, look across the driveway in that bush. He said, there's an ET over there. Its skin is like, there's no hair on it. It has a very long neck, a bulbous head. And he said, it's white. And so I look over there and you can see it. It would raise up so it could look around, and then all of a sudden it would drop back down again. And he was sitting there watching, and he didn't need the binoculars to see it. It was there. And he's like, this is incredible. So I walked towards it. I didn't feel any bad energy coming from it. I didn't feel concerned. I just walked towards it. As I walked towards it, it turned around and it just shuffled and ran into the woods very quickly. And he's like, why would you go near it? I said, it's not here to hurt anybody. Like, I don't feel any negativity off of it. I'm fine. He turns around with binoculars and looks up above the house, and there are literally 6 UFOs above the house. And he was just like, this is incredible. I can't believe this is happening. I really can't believe this is happening. And I'm like, sweetheart, if you're going to be here, you have to pace yourself, because you're going to have a paranormal meltdown. Okay. You're going to get used to it. It's going to be okay. And he would go to bed and things would tap on his window, or, be running around on the roof. And he was like, does it ever stop? And I said, not if you're around me. It just doesn't. I wish I could make it easier for you, but you will get used to it. Things will calm down. And then did. But this is just part of my normal life. I had friends coming in. One was from out of the country. One was from another state. And they had gotten lost. And I live in the middle of the woods. Like, you drive 3 miles into the woods on a dirt road to get to my house. And they had gotten lost. They thought they would be here multiple hours ago. And they called and said, it's going to be about 1 o'clock. And I said, okay, well, my road, there's no street lamps. You're out in the middle of the woods. I said, I will park my car at the end of the driveway with the headlights on, so you can see the light to find the driveway to turn in, because I have a floodlight out there, and due to a hurricane, the floodlight had been knocked out. They said, okay, that'll be great. So I parked at the end of the driveway, and this is 1 o'clock in the morning. I've got the headlights on. I called my friend in Texas, and I said, if I'm going to be awake, you're being awake. Just talk to me so I can have somebody to talk to. She said, okay. So we're talking, and it's like 1:30, and my friends are still not there. And I heard what sounded like a vacuum cleaner. And I said, this is crazy. Like, I'm out in the middle of the woods. Why? Like, why am I hearing this? I look up, and I've seen so many UFOs, but this one was massive. It was a very wide triangular shape, but it was just above the tree line. And it was like it was moving down the road, like it was following the path of the road. And it got right before my house, and it kind of hovered there. And I saw the entire underside of it, and it was rectangular shaped panels they looked like almost a wrought iron. I'm sure that's probably not what they were made out of, but that was what it looked like and resembled. And then like mesh grates on the inside of the rectangular, and there was hundreds of these panels underneath of it. The 2 wings in the front had a white light on it. The wings of it had multicolored lights. And it sat there for a minute. Well, I had turned, because my friends hadn't shown up. I had turned my car lights off and turned the car off because I didn't want to burn the battery down. And I said to my friend, I said, this is incredible. And she's like, well, take a picture. And I said, I don't have time to take a picture. You could be the last person I get to talk to. And anybody that knows me knows I'm sarcastic. I make stupid jokes for no apparent reason. And I'm like, you're the last person I could possibly talk to. So no, I'm not taking pictures. Just stay on the phone with me until whatever happens, happens. And she's like, just take a picture. And I thought, I didn't know what to do. So I turned the car on and hit my lights, which the lights were shining into the woods, not up in the air. And as soon as I did that, it was like it cloaked. I don't think it ever left. I think it just cloaked. And I couldn't see it anymore. And this thing was like half the size of a football field. So it's not like it was something small. What I did notice as I watched it hover there was no exhaust coming out of anything. There was nothing or any indication of how this thing maneuvered. It was just simply there. And I've seen a lot of them, and usually I don't hear a lot of noises. We have had a few in Michigan and here in South Carolina that did have, a couple of them sounded like a generator. And I would hear that generator noise outside at night. And it was like, okay, it's going to be a long night because I'm not going to sleep. I wouldn't even go out looking for it. I just was like, I'm not going to go to bed tonight because I know something's up. And this is my normal. And it doesn't go on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's usually some kind of craziness here from, some type of a being. But the ETs, they followed me my whole life. I had an experience. I've had several children, and I was married at the time. My husband had had a vasectomy. And when he did, obviously there was not going to be any more children. And it had been a year since he had had it. I wasn't with anybody but him. And I started getting a belly. And I was having what felt like morning sickness. And I thought, this is crazy. I went to the gynecologist and I said, I don't know if I have an infection. I don't know what's going on. They checked me for everything. And he said, your uterus is the size of a 4 to 5 month old fetus. He said, I'm going to do a pregnancy test. They did multiple pregnancy tests. And when they did, it all came out either negative or inconclusive. And so that was a concern. And nobody could figure out what was going on. I mean, it was just very odd because it wasn't, I hear him in maternity clothes. And they couldn't figure this out. They would do ultrasounds and the ultrasound machine would not work. It would start to work and then it would shut down. And nobody could understand why. This was just this big mystery. And meanwhile, I'm getting in maternity clothes. I'm throwing up in the mornings. I mean, it was just beyond belief. It really was. And then one day I woke up. My belly was completely flat and there was nothing there. I went to the doctor and he checked me and he said, it's like it never happened. Well, right after that, I started having a lot of abdominal pain and nobody knew why I had it. And this went on for a couple of years. I really had a lot of female problems after that episode had happened. So they decided that I needed to have a hysterectomy. And I went in, they did the hysterectomy, and they came in to talk to me afterwards, and they said, everything's fine, everything looks good, but your uterus was filled with a chocolate pudding-like substance that we have not seen before. We're going to send it out to the top labs in the country because this is concerning. We have literally no clue what this is. And I said, okay. They sent it out. Every lab came back and said it was unidentifiable. That there was nothing that they could compare it with that would explain what was inside me. And to this day, they've never figured it out. It just, like it didn't exist. They have never known what came out of my lungs. They've never known what came out of my uterus. It's just these things happened. There's no explanation for it. It's all documented. None of it, wasn't. But it happened. When I moved to South Carolina, I thought maybe things would let up. It just didn't. Nothing has changed. I mean, it's never probably ever going to change. I have a friend that I've worked with for 7 years now that's an abductee. And he was being attacked by the bad ETs. And he asked for help. I knew his uncle, and that's how he knew about me. And I said, I do whatever I could. I didn't know if anything would work. And so I did what I could with the energy work, and it stopped the abductions. I mean, they were torturing him. He's got an implant in him from it. I've seen the x-rays. And so I went ahead and I was able to get the abductions to stop. And it's been all these years and nothing. And he contacts me about 9-10 months ago now, out of the blue. And I've stayed in contact with him. And he's like, I was abducted again. And I said, what happened? I said, how is this even possible? Like, it's been fine all these years. And he said, no, it was different this time. It was good ones. They didn't hurt me. He said, I felt like they really cared. He said, but here's the crazy part. And I said, what? And he said, you are the only one I've discussed this with. Like, my uncle knew, but I never talked to him in depth about it. You are the only one. When they took him, they said that they had a message for the woman that helped him and that he talked to about it. And he's like, you're it. There isn't anybody else. And I said, okay, what's the message? And he said, people need to know that the bad ETs are taking possession of their people. And you need to know how, and you need to come forward with the information. And I said, how am I supposed to make anybody even listen to me? Nobody wants to listen to me now. How am I going to get them to do this? He said, they said that people will not listen, that you will be mocked. You know, people will think you're lying, but that you need to push and get the information out. Basically, they select these people as babies. They watch them grow up. They watch the people in their lives. And the thing that really resonated with me is it confirmed things that I had already figured out, such as they can't imitate the voices. They pull people from your past. And he wrote down everything they told him to give to me, which I have. And it says that they watch you and monitor you your whole entire life so that they know your mannerisms. They know who you've encountered in your life. They know everything about you. And that they can imitate you. But look out for the voices, because the voices won't be right. And that I had figured out on my own. And then it talks about when they do take you, that something about a little blue pill, and I didn't understand that because I don't know that much about it. I've heard other people tell me that they knew about a little blue pill, but something about they put you in this type of a chamber, and there's almost like a gas that you're going to inhale, and they put this blue pill down your throat. Basically, they take your essence, they take your soul out, and then the ETs go in. And it does get more in depth than that, but that's the gist of it. And when he told me, it made sense, because there's so many things that I've witnessed and I've figured out on my own that it supported and backed up everything that he told me. And I hadn't shared any of that information with him. I never had. So it was really astounding to me to know that. You know, it was validation for what I knew, but then it's also scary because now I'm supposed to make people understand this to protect people, and they're not going to listen to me. In fact, this is actually the first show that I put that much information about it out. I have said on other shows that, you know, there was information given to me, but I haven't really found the correct format to divulge all of it. So this show, I've actually shared more about that than I have any other show. But it is true, and it is legit. You know, whether anybody wants to believe it or not, I have no control over that. But people need to be made aware. This goes on all the time. I have a paranormal ability. I have multiple ones, to be honest with you. But one of the ones I have is I can look at someone, or I can look at something, and if it's been shifted or is not what it appears to be on the outside, when I look at it, I actually see, it's almost like I see inside of it, and I see what these things are. I was up in the mountains in Pennsylvania. I was up there to meet with what they call Earthkeeper. And I was with a friend of mine, and there was a young man that was in a restaurant. It was a pizza parlor. We were in a very small town. It had this pizza place, a gas station that also served pizza, and the hotel. That was it. That was the whole town. And we pulled up outside the pizza place, and he looked like probably somebody between the age of 18 to 20 years of age. Dark hair, relatively thin. He was sitting at a table with nothing but a glass of water. We got out, and he looked at me, and as soon as he locked eyes on me, I knew he was reptilian. I knew he was dangerous. And I looked at my friend. I said, get back in the car. We got back in the car. Nobody else was in this restaurant. I think it was probably closed. We never found out for sure. And I said, I'm in big trouble. Like, that's a reptile. I don't care what anybody says. It's a reptile. And it literally terrified me. That was one of the times that I was actually terrified. I said, we got to get out of here. And we hadn't eaten all day. We had been up in the mountains. I had gone up there to, meet with this earthkeeper. And we drove across over to the gas station, and they had this little thing you could buy pizza. So we grabbed that, and as we went to go leave, he literally, when we drove to the gas station directly across the street, he walked out the building and just made a beeline exactly where we were, came into the gas station and just stared at us. Like, it was almost like he was robotic. Like, he didn't move. He didn't blink. He didn't turn his head. He just stood there staring. We grabbed our things, walked as quickly as we could past him, got in the car, and went, which was probably 500 feet away was the hotel, went to the hotel. We go into the room, and it was a very nice room. It was on the single floor, and there were 2 king-size beds in it. She was in one, I was in the other, with the nightstand between us. I always at night, when I go to bed, I cannot sleep unless the TV's on because everything talks to me. So I put on funny shows, sitcoms, whatever, nothing dark, just all funny stuff. And it helps at night for me. So I had that on and I'm watching it. She was asleep immediately because we had been doing a lot of walking. And I was in the other bed, and she sat straight up and she said, did you hear that? And I had. It sounded like something scaling the building. You heard scratching, and it sounded like something climbing up the building. And I said, I did. And she said, what was that? I said, I have a feeling it was that thing. Like, I'm telling you, things are going to go bad really soon. Like, I knew it. I was literally on pins and needles waiting. So she laid back down, and she was instantly asleep. Like, it was not normal as quickly as she went to sleep, because she doesn't fall asleep that easily. I'm laying in bed. Next thing I know, I can barely move, and I'm getting jerked off the bed. Literally jerked off the bed. And I'm just thinking, what is going on? And I'm trying to make a noise. I couldn't speak. No noise would come out. I finally was able to move my arm, and I hit the nightstand enough to knock the can of soda she had next to her over. And the wetness, when it hit the bed, is what woke her up. She got up, ran over, grabbed me, and she's trying to pull me back on the bed. You can't see anything at the end of me. It's like there's nothing there, but yet I'm being pulled off the bed. She pulls me back on the bed, and she said, I don't care what happens. You have got to fight through and let me know, because apparently they're knocking me out. You have to wake me up. I can't help you if you can't wake me up, and I can't stay asleep. This happened 3 more times, and we got our belongings and we left in the middle of the night. I had scratches up and down my legs that were quite painful, and it was terrifying. It was literally terrifying. But it's like I could look down where you could physically see nothing, and yet I could see it there. It was really creepy. It was like it was in a shadow form, but I could see this reptilian thing down there. It was just awful. It was absolutely a living nightmare. And we ended up driving out of the mountains and all the way down to her place that night. We didn't get back home till almost 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I mean, these things are real, and they're out there. Everything has good and bad. It's the cosmic balance. Not everything is 100% bad. Not everything is 100% good. There are good ETs. I've encountered them. I know they exist. But there's a lot of bad ones too. And people don't realize that the world that we look at when we walk outside every day is not the real thing. It's what we have been led to believe is real. We believe that that's real because that's what our brain tells us, because that's what we're programmed to believe. And there's things out there that aren't good. There's a lot of wonderful things. I mean, I'm still alive, which proves that some of the things out there are good. But there are bad things out there, and people aren't aware of it. I mean, there's good and bad in everything. Am I afraid of this stuff? I have gotten afraid of it. I don't walk around afraid now, because there's more good than bad. There's always going to be more good than bad. But when things hit, I don't get as frightened and I don't panic like I used to, because I dealt with enough of it. We had, during Beltane, one night, my daughter and I were home and her brothers were not there. And there was a little ET guy that apparently there was a ship not far from the house that had come down and he got left. And Beltane gets to be a crazy time anyway. And my daughter was in her room, and first she rolled over and she saw 3 ghostly figures standing there. And she's like, my mom's across the hall. And they just stood there staring at her. So she flew into my room. Next thing you know, there's a floating head that goes across my room. And then I look over to the window, and my room had these huge windows on it. And there's this little ET dude out there. And he was absolutely terrified. He wasn't a bad ET. He was a good one. And he was little and he was terrified. You know, and I told him, I said, you can stay up close to the house. Trust me, nothing's going to hurt you here. You're protected. And he was there until the next morning. And I went out to check on him and he was gone. So apparently, you know, they came back and got him. But UFOs come in a lot of different ways. I mean, they don't just necessarily have to come in during the night or during the day. But we have, anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world, you have severe weather storms. Some are man-made, some are natural, but there's also a large majority that are literally created by the ETs. And one of the ways they can move in, the bad ones, is they will move in with this cloud system. And I've seen that happen multiple times. And generally, when you see them moving in with the clouds, you know that those are the bad ones. A lot of the good ones, you know, they know people are seeing, and they're coming more and more on this planet right now. There's supposed to be this big battle fought here on this planet, and it's supposed to bring in everything in all the dimensions, the rift, the portals, the galaxies. It's all supposed to be fought here. And it has been for the last 2 or 3 years, for the most part. You know, they do their own thing, and it kind of doesn't have a lot to do with us. But the ETs are very real. You know, people have come to my house that never believed in them before and left knowing they exist. I had a very dear friend of mine that had come to visit, and he said he didn't know what woke him up, but it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. So he thought, well, I'm going to walk out to the car. You know, he had left something that he needed there. And he walked out to the car. He turned around to walk back to the house, and there was a UFO hovering above the house. He came in and woke me up, and he said, there's a UFO over the house, you know, and I'm like, it's going to be okay. I mean, you can't freak out every time they're there, because they're there more than people realize. Otherwise, you will be on a paranormal bender that you can't get out of. You have to pace yourself. But he was scared, but yet he was excited because he actually got to see a UFO. You know, they are everywhere. People don't realize, I don't think, just how much they are out there. But they truly are. And you look at people with abductions, and I really feel for them, because a lot of people don't listen to them. A lot of people never did me. I didn't come forward with a lot of this until probably 2000, I guess the early 2010, 2011. I talked a little bit, and then I went quiet, and then I just got to the point where it was okay if people didn't believe me. You know, it's not my job to teach people. If people ask me, I will share the experiences. If they want help from me, I will always help. That is not a problem that I have. But these things are all over the place. I've had, you know, lizard man show up in my backyard. I have pictures of dimensional creatures in my tree line, elementals in my tree line. I have pictures of ETs in my tree line that will sit there and watch the house. You know, I went one time, I was headed back home from work, and there was a massive UFO over the airport. People were getting out of their cars just to look up at this massive thing. And it was very closely, as far as looks go, very closely related to the large one that I saw at the end of my driveway. Only this was on a much, much bigger scale. And I didn't get to see the underside panels on the one by the airport. But these things are real. And I have friends that think it's funny to call in the UFOs by flashing, certain light patterns and stuff. And they call me like, yeah, we got this many ships in. And I said, do you have any idea what you're playing with? These things have paranormal abilities that we can't comprehend. And there are many, many people of our people that have paranormal abilities, myself being one of them. And I have a lot of them. But I don't know of anybody, not just me, that can compete with the things that these beings can do. They're telepathic. They use telekinesis. They can cloak. They can do things that we cannot fathom. And they need to be taken seriously. The good ones are wonderful. They have healing capabilities that are phenomenal. But there's so much to them. They will never tell us everything that they can do. And that makes them even more concerning. The good ones, I will help the good ones any day of the week. But the bad ones are lethal and they cannot be trusted. And, to tell you how that you can tell the good from the bad, I really can't. You can tell by their energy. But your body will react to the energy before your brain will. So like if you're somewhere and you're walking around and you just feel very relaxed and very comfortable, and then all of a sudden you feel like the hair standing on the back of your neck, that's because something with different energy that probably isn't good has just come into your area. Your body will react to it. Listen to it. Because there may be a time that your life depends on it. But these things have always been here. They're not going to go away anytime soon. They're never going to go away as far as that goes. There was deals struck with the ETs hundreds of years ago. And in these deals, and the one that was with Eisenhower is documented. And I know it used to be you could go on the internet to be able to pull the treaty because his granddaughter actually made it public. But one of the things when they traded things with the ETs was our government could never reveal they existed. And they made a treaty with the bad ones. They didn't realize they were bad, but they were. They were allowed to take so many of our people in exchange for technology. The technology was supposed to be compensated by letting them abduct people, but the rules were they were never supposed to hurt anybody. People would be brought back and they would have no memory of it. And that wasn't what went down. People were hurt. They remembered it. They were killed. They were never returned. But part of that treaty was that the government would never move forward with it and tell people about it. And they haven't, even though the treaty was broken. And then they went into another treaty when Eisenhower was president. These are all facts that are easily looked up. These are not things I'm pulling out of midair. And the things that I've witnessed in my lifetime, and I've spoke to the ETs. When COVID hit, I spoke to the ETs. Because the entire paranormal kingdom out there are certain beings that are out there that were hit because of the COVID, because they were human crosses. And I did talk to the ETs, and I said, I want to know why you don't get it. And they said that part of it has to do with them going through space. It has to do with things are safer in going through portals. But it has something to do with their blood, and I don't know how anybody would find out or even do anything about it. But they don't get it. They absolutely don't get COVID. But they create hybrids. I have talked to several witnesses that have been abducted, where they've said that they're going to make more hybrids. And they will take a human, an ET, and whatever animal they feel like using, and create whatever they feel like. And they all get deposited here. I don't know the purpose. I could only speculate. But this is where we get a lot of the creatures that people don't understand, the cryptids or whatever you want to call them, different beings. But this is what they do. And these things are more prominent. The last thing that I had heard was wait till you see all the different ones were going to drop next. And it was shortly thereafter that people started seeing more bizarre things, including myself. But these things are ET created. And some of them have been here for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And they will just continue to do this. They will continue to take our people. People need to take it seriously. Do I think they'll ever leave me alone? No, never. It's only amped up throughout my life. The UFOs are more often. The experiences come more often. My children now have had to deal with it. As far as any of them being taken, I don't know that they have, but I would never rule out that they haven't. Just because I don't know that it happened and they may not remember it. A lot of times you don't remember it. You simply wake up with bruises and marks. My my kids have woke up with these triangular shaped patterns on them. I woke up with these long fingered handprint bruises on me that very much resemble the one that I saw when I was 4 years old. And I don't think they'll ever stop. Do I get terrorized? I really don't at this point. Once in a great while, I will have something happen that's really scary. They'll come at me in dream state. But since I got rid of the last 2 attacks in dream state, I have not had anything like that. Do they still come to me in dream state? Yeah. But now I hope I'm a little bit smarter and wiser, and I can pick it apart that this isn't a dream. This is actually happening. And I know enough now to control what I do in that dream state to be able to get rid of them. And then I generally wake up right away. But it doesn't mean they're going to quit trying. I have an X on my back from the bad ones where, at some point they're going to keep trying because they aren't going to give up. Fortunately, I also have some good ones that seem to like me, and I have other creatures that are helpful as well. But it doesn't stop. People don't realize how often this happens, and they really need to be aware. They will monitor people from the time they are born. They will learn everything that they possibly can about the people in their lives, the mannerisms, everything. I have had multiple times where I've been told, go outside and look at the star that isn't a star. I did. And I said, it just looks like a star. And I was told, no, put it on camera. So I put my cell phone up and I took a video of it. What I saw during the video was not what I saw with the naked eye. This ship was darting up and down, and it was doing maneuvers that there's nothing we have with those capabilities. I have friends in the military. They looked at it and they said, there's no way, we don't have anything like that. And then I was told, look next to it and you'll see where it came from. I looked at the sky and I saw nothing. I looked through the camera lens and I saw a cylinder-shaped thing that went up and down with multicolored lights on it. So they have the ability to cloak things and have it seem like things aren't there when they really are. But when people come to me and say, I've had these experiences, it literally, take them seriously. Even if you don't think it's real, listen to it, open your mind, obviously make your own decisions, but no, these things are real. They're not going away, and it's going to be real. It really is. I mean, like I said, it's there. It's not going anywhere. They've only picked up steam throughout the years, and I think they've made themselves more visible now. There will be a time when I think everybody will notice it and realize that they're here. They're not hiding in the shadows anymore. From the time I was a little kid until now, there's such a dramatic turn of events where it's almost to the point that they just have lost the desire to stay hidden. I tell people this all the time. I'm not saying you have to believe me. Open your mind a little bit and think of the possibilities, because those possibilities just might be real. I know what I've experienced, and I've had people around me when these things happen. Okay, not that things haven't happened when I'm alone, but I've had people around me. And they've seen what I've gone through. They've seen things here at my other houses. It's been everywhere I've ever lived. They just follow me. So just open your mind a little bit and think about the possibilities of what's out there. at some point in time, it might help you.
If you've had a paranormal experience and would like to be a guest on the show, please contact us by going to myparax.com. That's myparaex.com. Thanks for listening.